Hi there, Richard Fulmer here, and welcome to another Richard's Rock Rambles. So, we're going to take one last look at sort of lesser known live albums. And this band from the UK had a very well known live album from about 1973. We're talking about Uriah Heep, and this was the album that most people know, Uriah Heep Live, classic live album, great recording, great audience participation, the classic lineup of Gary Thane on bass, David Byron on vocals, Mick Box on guitar, Ken Hensley on organ and keyboards, and Lee Kerslake on drums. And you had all the hits on here: Sunrise, Sweet Lorraine, July Morning, Tears in My Eyes, etc., etc. So that's the one that came out in 73. But the one we're going to be chatting about today came out many years later, in fact in 1987. Let me just see if I have that right. I think this was 1987, was released in 88 actually. Live in Moscow from Uriah Heep. Now what makes this special, although it doesn't have the vibe and the, perhaps it's a different kind of production, it's the 80s, a bit sharper than the 73 one, which is still the top one for me. This was the first live Western rock act, to play in Russia, in Moscow, because at that stage in the 80s, everything was changing. Communism was on its way out, and they were allowing bands to come back. And Uriah Heep, I think, was the very first Western rock band to play there. And I think they had something like 10 dates there, and they did really well. And I'll get to the tracks in a second. Anyway, that's the front cover. It's not the best cover in the world. I mean, if it's a live album, they could have had a live shot of all the people there or whatever. It's a bit sort of nondescript, this cover. And at the back, it just gives you the song titles and who was in the band. And in the middle, it tells you all about the concerts and what have you. There's a couple of shots. That's the vocalist Bernie Shaw, who's still with the band, current vocalist. The guy with the hat there is the late Lee Kerslake, the drummer. And that's Mick Box and Trevor Bolder, the bassist. And there's a couple of other shots of the guys. There's one of Mick Box and Bernie Shaw. And if you can see, there's a few shots at the bottom as well. Drum kit, Lee Kerslake there. So there we go. That's the inside gate of the gatefold sleeve. So the tracks on here: Bird of Prey, Stealing, Too Scared to Run. Now, Too Scared to Run was done with the previous vocalist, Pete Golby. So this was very early days for Bernie Shaw, a Canadian singer, still with the band, like I said, but he only recently joined the band here, as well as the keyboardist Phil Lanzon, who obviously took the place of Ken Hensley, or John Sinclair, I think he replaced. So yeah, they were pretty new to the band, and here they were going off to Russia. So then you had a track called Karina, which I think was a new track that hadn't yet appeared on an album, as well as Mr. Majestic. And the other one on side 2 that was new was Pacific Highway. So those hadn't yet appeared on any album. I don't think they did. I think they were just done for this record. I stand to be corrected. And then the other well-known ones on side 2, you had The Wizard, that great acoustic intro from Mick Box. The epic July Morning, like Zeppelin always had to do Stairway to Heaven. Uriah Heep always have to do July Morning. It's just one of those tracks that are classic Uriah Heep. Easy Living, another one. And That's the Way That It Is. That was also Pete Golby sung track originally. So you had Mick Box on guitar and vocals, Lee Kerslake on drums and vocals, Trevor Bolder on bass guitar and vocals, Phil Lanzon on keyboards and vocals, and Bernie Shaw doing the lead vocals. But if we look at that lineup, besides Mick Box, who's the only original guy still in the band, he's been at the head of the ship for all the years. Lee Kerslake's passed away, Trevor Bolder's passed away, and yeah, they both, I think Lee Kerslake died a few years back, and Trevor Bolder a few years before that. And then Phil Lanzon and Bernie Shaw are still with the band as well. So 2 of the 5 guys here are no longer with us. But what a lineup. I just want to see if I can tell you a little bit here. It was mid-December in 87 when they played here. I just want to see how many people, for the massive audiences totaling 180,000 people. Uriah Heep took to the stage as heroes, and they left as messiahs. So they went down really well. 10 consecutive nights, Uriah Heep played sellout shows at Moscow's Olympsky Stadium, thrilling and delighting delirious audiences. And you can imagine, there's a country where you've been pretty much starved of anything like this, and suddenly here you have this iconic Western rock band, Uriah Heep, with all the bells and whistles and the explosions and what have you. I'm sure they must have they put on quite a show, and for 10 nights, and they did really well. 180,000 people saw them. It's not too shabby. And it's worth getting. I think if you're a completist, if you're a Uriah Heep fan, you want to have this in your collection. You listen to this and then you listen to the earlier live album, there are big differences, obviously, especially with the lineups. Bernie Shaw was still finding his feet. He's a great singer, but he's not David Byron. And especially on some of the older tracks, he was still finding his way with those, like The Wizard and July Morning. But it's one worthwhile to have in your collection. Uriah Heep, live in Moscow, with that rather boring cover. I really wish, if they do ever reissue, I think this has been reissued, but not with a different cover, with the same cover. I think it was reissued in about 2009, with I think about 3 or 4 bonus tracks. I don't know why they didn't do a nice live shot. There's always shots, these well-known photographers always take live shots of bands, so give us the guys, doing their thing on stage. Anyway, a minor quibble of mine. There we go, guys. So that'll be it for the moment for lesser-known live albums. Next time around, we're going to do something similar. We're going to look at the unloved albums of well-known and maybe not so well-known bands. The ones that most people sort of push to one side, but that I think need another listen. I'll catch you soon. Take it easy. Have a great week. And I'll see you later. Cheers.